so let's start. So we are honored today to be listening, watching, interacting with Russell Duffin, to be listening to the lecture delivered by Russell Duffin, who is head of the Official Documents English Translation Unit of the International Labour Organization in Geneva. So Russell, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure, Helene. My pleasure to be with you all. Only virtually, but this is the best we can do.
Yeah. So we're making the most of Zoom. Okay.
That's right.
Yeah. So I reminded our dear students that they are free to ask questions. Okay, especially if you want them to respond, quickly. So they can use the chat box. At the end of this class, they're going to complete and submit a feedback, a kind of survey or quiz based on what you're going to talk about. And actually, I'm not going to actually disclose anything, but this is how I test their attendance. At the same time, I need some feedback from the students. Okay, guys? Right. So now I'd like to give the floor to Russell, and I will share the screen with you. Okay, guys? Yeah.
Okay, all ready to go? Everybody listening, can we shout 84 times? Yes, everybody tuned in?
Yes.
Okay. Well, as Elena said, she already introduced me, so I don't need to repeat her words. I'm Russell, and at the moment I'm in Geneva, Switzerland, working as the head of the Official Documents English Translation Unit at the International Labour Organization. We'll say ILO because it's much easier, much shorter. I've been in my current job for almost 7 years now, and I'm responsible for all the written documents which are translated into English from other official United Nations languages, and also for all English documents which are produced in English and which are edited by my staff as well. So we perform the two tasks. We have translation and editing, about 50-50, a fairly even divide between the two disciplines. And in addition, as I said, to English, we have the other official UN languages, United Nations languages, because the ILO is a specialized agency of the United Nations. Does anybody know anything? A first question before I go further. Does anybody know anything about the ILO, what it does, its work, very quickly? No?
No, have no idea.
Okay, well, in brief, in a nutshell, the ILO, as its name says, is responsible for all matters relating to what we call the world of work. And we deal with employment rights, rights of workers, discrimination in the workplace, equal pay for work of equal value, that's the slogan. And the ILO, the organization, was founded 101 years ago in 1919, immediately after the end of the First World War, when the Treaty of Versailles was signed by the world leaders. And the basic premise, the basic principle on which the organization is founded is the following: without social justice, there can be no peace. In other words, we can't live without war, we can't live in peace unless we try to achieve justice or fairness for everybody. And we try to do that by, as I said, making sure that everybody has productive employment, which, as we know, we live in a very difficult world, so it's not always possible. So the principles of the organization and of the United Nations in general are principles, but At the same time, unfortunately, I have to say that they're ideals, they're things we aim to achieve, they're things we strive for. But of course, living in the especially in the current times, then we're working basically to achieve something that's impossible. But of course, we have to continue. We have to strive to move forward and to enable everybody to achieve this principle of what we call social justice. So what I'll talk to you about today, or what I'll move towards, is how I'm working, how we're working in Geneva and other United Nations, what we call duty stations, which are places where United Nations agencies are based. And I'll also ask you from time to time, well, firstly, to ask me any questions. If you don't understand me, does everybody understand me okay so far?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
Yes.
very good. Very good. And also to stop me if anything I say in terms of facts or details you're not sure about, or it's unclear, or as I said, you need help to make sense of what I'm saying. And I want to hear from some of you, maybe not all of you. Maybe I'll just scroll through your list of names a little later on and pick out some, well, I won't say victims, but people who I'll ask you maybe to talk a little bit about yourself, who you are, which languages you're studying, and what your ambitions or aims are for the future. Eliana, could I have the second slide, please?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so let me speak first, just for a few minutes. I don't want you to get bored with what I'm saying or to fall asleep. But basically, here is what I've called my short career history. So I talk firstly about where I studied. First of all, I was obviously at school, secondary school in the UK, in England, until I was 18 years old. And that was where I developed what I call my love of languages. At the time, I think I was maybe 13 or 14 years old, and my brother, who was a little bit older than me, he was already at university studying French and Spanish. So I guess he was my what we would call a role model in English, somebody you admire, somebody whose example you try to follow. So I decided that languages were my favorite subject. They were what I enjoyed. They were thankfully what I was good at. And in my case, I was studying French and your native language too, Russian. I started studying Russian when I was, 13 years old, back in 1980, in the time of the Soviet Union. And as you can imagine, the first hurdle that I had to jump over, the first challenge for me, was when I saw an alphabet which was completely unrecognizable. So I was thinking, what's that letter? What's this letter? And I remember when very early, right at the beginning, the teacher was giving us a test, and he was pronouncing letters, the sounds, and asking us to write the correct letter down, which corresponded to the sound. And so with A, B, V, I thought, okay, this is straightforward. But then he said something like je, sh, and I was thinking, what are these sounds? What are these letters? So I was completely confused. But like everything else, everything became a habit, and I made progress, and I studied Russian for 6 years at school, and then went to university, where I continued studying French and Russian. Those were my chosen degree subjects. And as you see from the presentation, I went to Oxford University. My degree course there was 4 years long. The first 2 years I spent in Oxford in England, and the third year, well, how can I describe it? Maybe the most, let's say, the most difficult or challenging, interesting, I don't know what the right word is, year of my life, where I lived in Voronezh in Russia for 1 academic year, studied Russian language and literature in the university there. And this was at the time, this was in 1989, 1990. So the Soviet Union was coming to an end slowly, and conditions were very tough. Let's say I was very hungry, very cold, and pretty miserable at times, I have to admit, but there we go. I achieved my aim. My knowledge of Russian improved a lot as a result of the time I spent there. And then I went back to Oxford, completed my degree. And at that point, I decided, I guess like all of you, that my future career was as a translator or interpreter. But as I'd already spent a year in Russia, in the Soviet Union, and my knowledge of French, which I needed for my career as a translator interpreter, wasn't so good. So I decided to spend 1 year in France teaching English before I tried to gain a place on the specialized postgraduate course that I wanted to attend. So a degree course in Oxford, 1 year in Russia, 1 year in France, and finally I started my training as a postgraduate student of interpreting and translating, again with French and Russian. And the first stage was a postgraduate diploma leading to a Master of Arts degree. So something similar to which I guess many of you will go on when you complete your undergraduate courses. Elena has explained to me that you're all fifth-year students, is that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So do you all think that you will continue studying languages, becoming translators, interpreters when you finish your undergraduate course?
Yes,
Hopefully,
I hope
yeah.
so.
Hope so.
Okay, I'll keep my fingers crossed up for all of you. So after I completed my studies, then as you see from the slide, I started working, and finding work as a translator or interpreter in England at that time was extremely difficult. So what I did, quite simply, I followed the advice of my university tutors, professors, and I bought myself a plane ticket to come to Geneva. And basically, it took a very, very long time to become established, and there wasn't enough work just in Geneva, so I had to be flexible to travel to go to other cities in Europe where there are international organizations. So as you see from the list I've included in the slide, I worked in Vienna, in Strasbourg, in Paris, also went to Washington, DC in the United States. And there's a list of the organizations that I worked for: the United Nations Office at Geneva, the World Intellectual Property Organization, International Atomic Energy Agency, and so on. And basically I was a freelance translator and occasional interpreter, let's say, for each of these organizations. And the contracts I had were from, let's say, ranging from 3 weeks to 3 months, very short contracts. And it was only after, let me think, maybe 6 or 7 years of working like that, of lots of travel, lots of uncertainty, and but lots of flexibility, let's say, that I was offered what I call in the slide a real job. In other words, a longer contract. And the contract I was given was in Geneva at the World Intellectual Property Organization. Does anybody know anything about this organization? No?
Not really.
No.
No? Okay. Well, the World Intellectual Property Organization, like the International Labour Organization, where I work now, is a specialized agency of the UN. And that organization deals with subjects like copyright, patents, trademarks. In other words, providing protection for people's inventions or what they do in terms of also for musical performances. If somebody produces a song or music, then it's their original product, and basically nobody else is allowed to, at least in accordance with the law, nobody else is allowed to steal the idea, basically. So as I said, protection for inventions which are intellectual or material property as well. And then after a long time working there in the English translation section, 12 years I was there from 2001 to 2013, I decided that enough was enough. I wanted to have a new challenge, and I was offered a contract at the United Nations headquarters in New York. I'm sure we all know a little bit about New York.
Of course you do.
And well, let's say the job I had there was great. My life in the city was fantastic. Lots of new experiences, lots of new challenges. But in the end, I only stayed there for 1 year because at the time, my son, who's now 8 years old, he was very young. He was 1.5, and let's say just trying to raise a small child in a big city like New York is it's not the best place. So I had the good fortune to be offered another job in Geneva. So I came back to Geneva, to the current post where I am now, the International Labour Organization. And here I am. I started here in 2014. And here I am 7 years later, still the head of the official documents English translation section, unit. So those are my studies. That's my career from 1994 to 2020, a long time already. So any more questions before I continue? Is it too much information?
No, everything is clear, thank you.
Everything is clear? Okay.
Yes.
All right, so maybe, Elena, we could have the third slide. Okay, so here in slide number 3, I've, let's say, outlined, or I've listed what I think are the key principles in achieving what I now have. So where I am in my career, where I am in my life in general. And let's say if I have one aim for the lecture today, and I hope we will have more lectures in the future when I can maybe teach you English more specifically, because I'm very keen to hear you speak in English and hear you read in English as well. And maybe via Elena, I can make some suggestions for documents you can read or texts you can read to improve your English. And then you've told me already that you want to succeed and be professional linguists. Now, in the first bullet point in slide number 3, I've listed what I think are the most important the most important principles to observe. So first and foremost, you have to be flexible. As I said, when I began working, because I couldn't find enough work in one place, in one city, then I decided that I had to travel to try and expand my contacts and to be ambitious. Ambition is also a very important quality. Without it, I don't think that you can succeed, that you can achieve what you want. And you need a strong will to succeed. You need to believe in yourself, and you need to see that not just as professional linguists, but as individuals, as human beings, that you are your personal worth is very, very high. You have very, very high personal value. And my belief, my thought is that if your linguistic skills are good enough, if you have the ability, the capacity to do well, then I'm sure you will succeed. What I want to try, the message I want to try to convey to you is that you have to believe in yourselves. You have to believe that you have the ability, the capacity to go forward and to realize your ambitions. And I really, what I want to do more than anything else is to try to provide you with motivation and stimulation, and to understand that the kind of career I'm talking about is very difficult to reach the top level. Let's say the level that now I have the good fortune to be at. But if you believe in yourselves, if you want it, if you want this, if you're motivated, and obviously if you have the ability, then you can you can achieve exactly what you want. And of course, like all things, I guess, in life, okay, you have to have the ability, the flexibility, the ambition, the self-belief, but sometimes you need to have some good fortune. I don't want to say good luck because, you know, it's not necessarily the right term, but sometimes these things are important too. You know, if you're in terms of getting a job or getting work, if you're, let's say, in the right place at the right time, or you have the right contacts, then you can move ahead more quickly or more successfully than you would do otherwise. So lots of information from me. And now what I'll do, I'll choose maybe 3 or 4 of you. I'll just go through the list of names. So nothing more than a random choice. And I'll ask you maybe to answer 3 questions when you talk to me. I mean, whether you talk for 30 seconds or 1 minute or 2 minutes is entirely up to you, sorry. But I'd like to, first of all, know your name. Maybe if you talk a little bit about yourself, where you're from, which languages you're studying, why you're studying them, and finally, if you have specific aims or goals in your lives. So let me try to see who we have. Ksenia Kornienko, does the last person?
Yeah, hi, it's me.
Hi,
Nice to
Ksenia,
meet
nice
you.
to meet you. Yeah.
So
So
tell about myself.
yes, please. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm studying here. I study Italian and English. Well, but I mostly want to work with English.
Okay.
Besides university, I work as an artist manager. I make events. I book artists for some Russian events, especially DJs.
Okay.
And I also work with the legal part of an artist management with royalties, music rights,
All right.
and just support artists.
Very good.
In my future, I hope, well, I'm working right now on a company with my friend, and we're going to support artists in Russia and, you know, make their dreams come true.
I hope so, yeah.
Yeah, and make them like huge international artists like this.
Sure. So do you use your languages in your work? Or,
Yeah, sure. Yeah, mostly all business correspondence is in English.
Sure, sure.
Sometimes I use Italian, but it's like, you know, once in a year.
Okay.
And that's it. But I like Italian. It's nice, you know, culture, kitchen, wine.
Yeah, no, the food is very good. In fact, to tell you a little story, I'm just back after 4 days holiday in Italy. I spent the last 4 days in the south of Italy in Puglia.
Oh, yeah.
And I was staying in Lecce, and I visited a few other places, Bari and Brindisi and Alberobello and Otranto, and it's all very beautiful and all very, very relaxed. In English, you know, we say that Italy is a beautiful country. The food is beautiful. The language is beautiful. The people are beautiful. The clothes are beautiful. So, you know, it was a short holiday, but in the times in which we're living, then it was a good thing to do. And 4 days traveling in Europe at the current time when it's so difficult to go anywhere, you know, it was a nice trip to have. Huh?
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a few ideas about you. I'd like actually to speak to all of you, but there are so many people that it's obviously impossible in the time we have. I'll remind you again at the end of the session, but maybe if Elena wants to pass on my email address or my contact details to you, then feel free today, tomorrow, or whenever you want to write me an email if you want to ask advice about something, or you think of questions after the lecture is finished. So as I say, we're only talking maybe for 1 hour and 20 or 30 minutes, but our contacts don't end after that time. We can stay in touch. So as I said, please feel free to write me an email.
Yeah, Russell, I will post your email
Okay.
in the stream, in the Google Classroom stream.
I thought you were going to say in the street, huh?
Stream. Okay.
No, that's fine, absolutely, yeah.
Good.
Whenever anybody wants to contact me, then they're free to do so with pleasure. So, okay. So maybe we could have the next slide. Okay, so there we go. Okay. So in this slide there are just a few general thoughts, and I'd like you to contribute as well, to let me know your views. The reason we're all together today is that we're all linguists and we all love languages, or I hope we do. Whichever ones we speak, study or read. And you've already, the people with whom I've spoken, you've told me that you're studying Korean and Italian and Arabic, and you all have different reasons for your choice, or maybe, as Ksenia was just telling us, you didn't choose the language, but the language chose you, or something came about by accident or without any particular reason. And it's true that, you know, we all love our languages. Some of us love our languages because, or maybe all of us, most of us certainly, we want to use them on a professional level. And let's say I'm a professional linguist now, and I have been for a long time, and I'm sure that all of those of you who choose languages as a career, that you will succeed, as I said, provided you have the belief and the ability to do so. And well, I said I've been working for a long time. It's true. I finished studying in 1993. Maybe many of you weren't born at the time, if any of you were born at the time. And I started working in the following year in 1994. And the biggest thing, and I've said this twice already, but I'll repeat it again, was that I had to be very flexible, and I had to be prepared to travel and obviously take a risk. I mean, just to give you a little anecdote, a story, as I said a few minutes ago, when I started working, or let's say when I started looking for work in Geneva, I bought myself a plane ticket. I came here for 5 days and nobody knew who I was. I visited maybe 5 or 6 different United Nations agencies, organizations, and most of them said to me, well, you know, you have a great CV, a great resume, but no experience as a translator, interpreter, so we can't give you any work. And my argument obviously was the opposite. How do I get experience if you won't give me any work? So their argument was no experience, no work, and my argument was no work, no experience. But this is something that I guess we all face at the beginning of our careers, and those factors existed way back in 1994 when I began, and I'm sure that the same still applies now. And the profession is, I don't want to say dominated, but the profession is basically, let's say, the majority of people in the profession have lots of experience. So when you're starting, you know, you think that you'll never make progress, you'll never work, you'll never get a contract. But as I say, persistence and flexibility and the will to succeed are all very important things. And now, as I said, the factors which existed when I began, they still apply, but let's say the advantage that you all have now, which I didn't have so much when I began with, is the development of technology. And we've seen how important technology is this year, because we've all been forced to stay basically in our own countries, in the cities where we live. in the houses or apartments where we live, because simply our freedom of movement has been massively restricted because of not the epidemic, but the pandemic, really. We can't move around. We haven't been able to visit our families, but now maybe things are a little bit easier, or I don't know. We'll see what happens. Are they getting worse again? We'll talk more about COVID and its effects on your lives as students and future professionals in a few minutes. But what I'm trying to do now is emphasize the fact that with technology, then becoming a professional translator or interpreter is still very difficult. But if you do have the possibility to pursue a career, then pursuing the career, doing the job is much more flexible, is much easier, or let's say less difficult than it used to be, because we have the internet, we have Skype, we have Zoom, we have the list of things I state here, we have machine translation, we have electronic dictionaries, and we have all the media, written, visual media. It's all available on the internet. And so in that sense, I guess all of you are very fortunate. Your sense of reality as students now and as professional linguists in the future is very, very different in that sense to my own when I began. And what I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to underline is the fact that, okay, on the one hand, we're all living in very difficult circumstances because of the pandemic, because of COVID-19, but technology allows us to continue studying, working, living in general, and that's what we have to do. As we said at the beginning, we're all in this together, and I'm sure we'll all come out of it together. And hopefully in the future, I'll have the opportunity to come to Moscow to speak to you, to visit you, so we can talk more closely, more personally, and share experiences, and you can explain to me your different circumstances. But now at least we have a few minutes, and in terms of the last few months, let's say since January, February, March this year, could we just jump onto the next slide, Elena, before I continue? The last few months, let's say since the beginning of 2020, then we've been, all of us, placed in a very difficult, what I call in the slide, a predicament. Do we all know the word predicament?
Yes.
Yeah. Could anybody give me a synonym or a quick explanation of the word predicament?
Difficult circumstances.
Very good, thank you. Difficult circumstances, difficult situation. We also say to be in a tight corner or a tight spot or something like that, but predicament is a more neutral general word. Thank you. I was obviously asking you something that you know very well, but there we go. So basically the coronavirus, COVID-19, the pandemic, all these different terms we use, then it's forced us to work and to study and to think differently. And at the beginning of the first bullet point on this slide, I mentioned my own experience. Today, I've started a new period of teleworking, so I'm working from home again for the next 4 weeks. Maybe, I expect, I anticipate it will be much longer, but we'll see how things develop. And I was in exactly the same situation earlier in the year, between March and July, when I spent 4 months working at home, when the office building, the ILO office, was closed. And I was working, and at the same time, I was teaching my son because his school was closed. So basically, I was doing 2 jobs. I was a translator and a teacher. So, you know, it was very, very difficult from a practical point of view in terms of managing my time. So again, let me try and pick maybe a couple of people, and I'd like to know a little bit about your own experiences, how your lives as students have changed in the past few months, or what effect the pandemic has had on you personally, or in terms of your families, or as a group of students. Who can I choose next? Let me see the list of names.
Right, Russell, while you are looking for
Yes.
the person to answer these questions and
Yes.
share their thoughts. Guys, if your internet connection is stable, you can actually switch on the camera. It's even better to communicate. If you are experiencing some issues, it's okay. You can keep it off. Not.
Don't be shy, huh? Maybe, who have we got? I'll choose a name from the beginning of the list. Lyubov Kasatkina.
So the question that you wanted to ask you was about the conditions that you're all experiencing because of the COVID. Is that correct?
Exactly, yes.
Yes, so, well, for me personally, the technology wasn't working so well because of the location that I'm in at the moment, and I think we'll experience some inconveniences because the technology didn't exactly work as it was supposed to all the time. And I personally would prefer to study as we all used to at class because it was obviously more convenient for everyone. But well, we did not choose the predicament as you expressed yourself that we are all in at the moment. So we have to cope and we have to persevere. That's what I think.
I think that's exactly right. We have to, as you said, we have to persevere. We have to be persistent. And Elena and I were discussing this earlier. We have to carry on and try to live and to study and work as normally as possible. And we adapt to very difficult circumstances. So obviously, technology is great when it works, which isn't always the case, unfortunately. But let's hope that on the whole, it makes our lives easier. Certainly, without technology in the current circumstances, then it's difficult to imagine how we would continue studying and working and being as normal as possible. Yeah? So, Maria Pica, is that the correct pronunciation?
Yeah, it is correct. It is
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
So I'm like, are we talking about the changes during the last 2 months?
Exactly, Maria. Yeah, how your work, sorry, your life as a student and in general terms has changed since the beginning of the year?
Well, I would say that my life as a student has changed for the better since I also work, and it's more convenient for me to, well, to stay at my place and to wake up and go to classes online and then to continue my job. Well, yeah, I really appreciate my time, and I'm trying to manage it as best as I can. And so now, all this pandemic thing, I think it even helped me a little. So, yeah.
Okay, very good. So difficult circumstances have actually, as you said, helped you or improved your life, maybe.
Yeah. I think if I didn't work, I would be upset because, well, I am actually upset regarding the fact that I can't really see my friends every day, my friends at the university. I mean, this is like the bad part of the pandemic, but, well, I would say that there are more good things than bad ones because, well, I can meet my friends, well, on a weekend, so it's not a big deal. So generally, my life improved dramatically.
Great. Okay. At least for one person, huh? So no, that's really good to know. And Maria, just one question: which languages are you studying?
I'm studying French and English.
Okay. And is your surname French? Is there a link there?
Sorry.
Is your surname French? Is there a link to France or French? Or?
Yeah, it actually is, and it's an old version of my family name because my family did some kind of a research, and it turned out that some granddad, his family name was this, and then later somebody in the family changed it and added that ending over. So actually, the full family name is Pikarova.
Picardova, okay.
So yeah, it used to be many, I don't know, many ages ago.
Okay, a long time ago in the distant past. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so.
All right, thank you very much, Maria. So I think that's enough there. I'll talk maybe just for a few more minutes, and then we can have a little while to have questions and answers and to see where we go after that. Okay, so we've combined our thoughts. As I say on the slide, we've put our heads together, which is maybe a nice expression for you to know in English if you don't know it already. And some more questions. I mean, okay, I can tell you what I think, but I don't have a crystal ball. I can't see the future. It was good to hear from Maria, from the last participant, that the pandemic has had a very positive effect on her life as a student and in general. I'm not sure everybody in the world shares that kind of perspective, but we all know that even in these difficult times, we have to be optimistic and to look forward. It's a very, very broad and very, very wide-ranging open question, but how do we think that the pandemic might develop? Are we going to be in this situation for 6 months, for 1 year, for longer? I mean, my thought is that hopefully by the summer next year, then I'll be able to come to Moscow again and see you all. But I guess it's a medium or long-term problem that we're facing. I think that we'll learn a lot from the experience. I mean, as we say, life now, it seems for many reasons very difficult, but when we do eventually return to, well, maybe if we do return to the previous way of doing things, then we'll understand better the advantages and the disadvantages of both systems of studying traditionally or working traditionally in a classroom or in an office on the one hand, but also we're learning to understand the values, the differences that technology gives us. And as we say, technology is great when it works, and unfortunately it doesn't always work, but let's say when it's used for the right purposes, then it's very, very effective, and it gives us another choice for sure. And in terms of your future or your futures rather as professional linguists, then technology is absolutely fundamental and will be fundamental to what you do and the way you work. That's absolutely certain. Elena, could we perhaps have the next slide? So we just move on now to slide number 6. I mean, in conclusion, all of you have said very similar things, that the pandemic has forced you to live differently, and it will continue to do so. We have to remain optimistic about the next few months, about the next few years, and about the future in general. And I'm very hopeful that sooner or later, as I mentioned earlier, that we'll be able to meet and talk more personally and more closely and have the contact, which is, okay, as I said, technology is great, but technology removes human contact when it's remote, when it's distant. And for me, that's a great, it's inevitable, but at the same time, it's a great pity, because just another small anecdote, when I went back to the office in the summer after working at home for 4 months, and I started to see my colleagues again, even though we'd been having our regular 2 or 3 times a week meetings on Zoom or Skype. Suddenly, when I saw them all again face to face in the flesh, then for a few days it felt very strange actually to be face to face with everybody. So, okay, as I say, on the one hand, technology is a fantastic thing, but it removes a degree of personal contact, and for me, that's not such a positive thing. And just to refer before we before I close what I want to say, and then we have a bit of time for questions and answers. It's true that, as I say, technology helps us, and we're more and more reliant on it, especially at the current time. And as students of languages, as you all are at the moment, and as future professional translators and interpreters, or whatever you choose to do, then technology will continue to play a fundamental role in your lives. And at the moment, I'm having my meetings, and you're having your lectures and your classes and your seminars online as we're meeting now. So really, technology is a fundamental thing in our everyday lives. When I do my translations at the office or at home, I send them, I submit them electronically, and even for the interpreters now in the United Nations, in the ILO where I work, they're able to provide interpretation using Zoom, just in the same way that we're talking now. So you really, well, we can't be together, but in that sense, there's absolutely no need to be together anymore. We can do everything we want from any distance, from any place in the world. But as I said, for me, in reality, this is okay. We're helping people to communicate, and we're all forced to communicate remotely, but it's a great pity, because what we're trying to do through our work by means of writing and speaking is to try to bring people closer together. We're trying to help people communicate who can't understand each other, and you know, it's okay, we're doing it remotely, we're doing it virtually, but without the personal contact, then for me, maybe I'm traditional, maybe I'm old-fashioned, maybe you will express the opposite opinion, but technology is a means to an end. It helps us to work, it helps us to study, but there's something fundamental for us as human beings which is missing. So that was what I wanted to say in conclusion, and I'll talk maybe for a couple of minutes in a little while, but now the floor is open to all of you. Would you like to ask questions, and hopefully I can provide the answers. As I said, I'd like to, you know, say thank you to everybody for participating. It's been very good to speak to some of you, at least. Obviously, I don't have the time to speak to everybody, which is a shame, but in the future, hopefully we'll have that opportunity. So, as I said, the floor is open. Over to you. Any questions? And I'll do my best to answer them.
May I ask?
Of course.
How did you manage to find a job without experience?
Well, despite what I said earlier, the catch-22 situation of no experience, no work, no experience, then the first time I came to Geneva, as I said before, I visited maybe 6 or 7 organizations, and I think only 1 or maybe 2 of them actually. One of them, they offered me a translation test. They gave me more sympathy, let's say, than the other places that I visited, and so I took a translation test from French into English and Russian into English, and on the basis of that test, they offered me a contract of 3 weeks initially, just 3 weeks, and it wasn't immediately. It was 3 months after I did the tests. So during those 3 months, I was obliged to go back to England because I was just beginning my career and I didn't have the financial means to support myself. So I lived with my parents again, and I had lots of free time until my first contract in Geneva started. But this is also something I'd like to say to you, that, you know, for the future, when you start working, if you start working as freelance interpreters or translators, then for sure there will be gaps in your contracts when you have free time. And it's absolutely fundamental that in order to make progress in your careers, that you use the free time that you have maybe to learn other languages, to develop interest in other subjects, to travel if we have that possibility again, let's say, to develop yourselves as as linguists, as individuals, as human beings. So yeah, in answer to the question, then as I say, one organization gave me a chance, and that was where everything started in that way.
Perhaps we have some time for one more question, guys. Something perhaps that is more, I don't know, has some practical application that you can ask Russell, I don't know, to give you some kind of instruction, guys.
May I ask?
Yes, you're welcome.
May I?
Of course.
So I would like to ask you, how do you deal with new, ongoing, upcoming rules in political correctness? Because one day you're allowed to say one word and to write one word, but another day it's unethical. And we know that in documents, what's written is solid. So how do you deal with that?
Could you just give me maybe a small example of what you're referring to?
Okay, for instance, you might say one name over, I don't know, for a race or something, but another day it's unethical, or for some group of people, like women or
Sure.
businessmen, or now it's entrepreneur and etc.
Okay, it's a very good question. Obviously, as you say, then we live in what I guess we like to call a politically correct world, and certainly in the United Nations, in the ILO, the organization in which I work, then we have very strict rules with regard to the language that we use relating to gender, to gender neutrality, especially now. We can still, well, let's take a basic example. For meetings, we used to refer to the chairman or the chairwoman, but now we're not allowed to say that anymore. So we have to say chairperson or chair even. The chair said this, the chair said that, as if it's a chair that's speaking. But as you said, all for the purposes of being politically correct. With regard to gender also, I don't know. I mean, in terms of the way people identify themselves, then the traditional concepts of male and female are, let's say, now more, I don't know, more fluid. But for the time being, we stick to he or she. Sometimes we're told it's a little bit flexible that we should place she before he, or to make it gender neutral. In English, we could say they when we're referring to one or more people. So there we are. And also, as you also suggested, which is a very, very good point to make, we're not allowed, obviously, in terms of the language, we're not allowed to refer to blacks or whites or different races like that. We have to say, I think, persons of color. That's the term that we use for non-Caucasian, for non-white people. And also for people whom we used to call disabled or handicapped, now we have to refer to them as people with disabilities. And also people who are, let's say, blind, or they have trouble with their sight. I think the correct terms, if I remember rightly, we have to say visually impaired. I don't know. Do you understand that expression?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay. Visually impaired means that you have some kind of defect in your vision or your sight. So we can, I think we can say partially sighted, but visually impaired is the usual thing. In other words, we're not allowed to say blind. We're not allowed to say deaf or things like that. So yeah, your question is a very good one. There's a whole range of political correctness, and we have to follow the rules very carefully. And what we have at the ILO, at the office, we have what we call a house style manual. So we have rules on the way we write, on the expressions, the forms that we can actually use, and also on the things that we can't say, which are, you know, are not allowed anymore.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's a very good question. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. And Russell, on behalf of my students, I'd like to ask you a question. Are there any job openings at the ILO?
You want to come and work?
Well, that's actually for my students.
Yeah, of course.
Do they stand any chance?
Well, yes, they do. But I have to paint a realistic picture. So as I said, it is very, very difficult to start, to let's say get your, as we say, get your foot on the ladder, or you know, to start being a professional translator or interpreter. And I think in almost all cases, all the colleagues I have, myself, my own experience, we all began as freelancers. So we, even though we worked straight away in the United Nations system, we did short contracts, but even now for short contracts, they're more limited in number than they used to be, for sure. I mean, in response to your specific question, Elena, at the ILO, for the Russian translation unit, for example, there's only one in-house translator, but he's a graduate of MGLU from years ago, of course, but he's about to retire next year, so there will be a new there will be a new position, there will be a new opening for sure. But the people that he uses, the Russian translators that he uses, are all freelancers. But for sure, there's lots of work, lots of translation work from English and French, especially, and the other UN languages into English. Not just at the ILO, but in the UN system in general. That there are a lot of documents. So you know, there are possibilities, but on the other hand, as you understand, there's a very, very high level of competition. So, because I mean, here we have 80 or 90 different people, 80 or 90 different students, all at the moment thinking or wanting to be professional linguists. So, as I said, the level of competition is very, very high. I know at MGLU you have specific courses geared towards the UN, the United Nations training program. Yeah?
Yeah, that's true. Yes, exactly.
So in that sense, for your students, for everybody, if there's one piece of advice, then if they're thinking specifically in terms of working in international organizations, then the best way to go would be to try to follow the UN program, the UN courses that you offer, or in another university or institution.
Well, it's better to do it at Moscow State Linguistic University.
Of course. Yeah. That's the only choice, huh? So.
Yeah, surely. We signed the memorandum, so okay.
Of course, yeah. But as I say, I have, you know, I mean, I want to try to motivate everybody. I want to be optimistic, but at the same time, there are opportunities, but there's a very, very high level of competition. But as I found, that if you manage to get into the system, the rewards are very big. Personally, financially, in terms of location, as I say, Geneva, Vienna, New York, lots of potentially very exciting places. So there are possibilities, but I don't know, if I compare the situation now to how it was maybe 15, 20, 25 years ago when I was starting, then I guess now the situation is more difficult than it was then. But let's say at the same time, when I began working, people were telling me that when I began, it was more difficult than 10 years before that. So, you know, but on the other hand, you know, realistically, it's tough, but there are definitely opportunities for people who are motivated and for the very best linguists, put it like that.
Okay, thank you, Russell. Thank you. So it's been a privilege listening to you, watching you, yeah, and sharing, listening to your experience.
As I say, if I have one regret today, that it's I can't be with you there in Moscow, or you know, we can't all meet face to face, but I'm sure we'll have the opportunity, well, hopefully next year. Right? But in the meantime, of course, let's try to organize more lectures and
fantastic.
Maybe if we have the possibility, if we have a smaller number of people, then we can do some specific English language exercises together. So I mean, I've been very impressed by the way everyone has spoken. You know, the level of English is very good. I can hear already. Yeah.
Good, guys.
Yeah.
Good news.
So, you know, I mean, next time or in the future, let's try to organize some classes, maybe rather than lectures, and I can
workshops, right?
Workshops. I can really see exactly what level everybody has in English, and hopefully, you know, as a native speaker, I've been able to pass on some enthusiasm to them, and to see that the English as a language, you know, as they're all aware, I'm sure, but it's really very important, and it has real meaning in the world, that they can use professionally and personally too.
Yeah, yes, okay, I totally agree. So now let's thank Russell for your fantastic and informative lecture. So we are looking forward to meeting you soon online, guys. Say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great to speak to everybody. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
sooner or later we will meet, I'm sure, in the flesh, let's say.
Yeah, hopeful.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Okay.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Elena. Bye-bye.
Bye.